Do you ever walk into a room and feel out of place? Like you don't belong? Do you ever find yourself feeling inadequate when interacting with a person who is far wealthier, well-educated, or well-achieved than you? Do you have general social anxiety? Well, let's talk about that. Social media is making us depressed, both in the solitary practice of looking through your phone, tablet, or computer screen just to connect or relate to persons you don't see in real life regularly, but also in the way that it enables ourselves to compare our lives more readily with others. This comparison often leads to feelings of inadequacy as we stroll through pictures and posts about our friends' weddings, a friend's promotion, a friend's new house or car, or a well-deserved vacation. The jealousy can rack up faster than ever before, but even faster can these feelings of inadequacy. In our modern world, there are more Joneses than ever to keep up to, readily put in front of our eyes, and more than ever we find that we just can't keep up. And even, if not in a materialistic way, those of us that are in our prime childbearing and raising years can't even, it seems, keep up with having kids. Or any kid. At all. Leaving many of us feeling very unfulfilled. But do we really need to compare ourselves to others? Now, if your answer is no, that concept is so ingrained in our modern thinking that it may still cause all of us inordinate amounts of suffering. That's because it often is an automatic thought. That is, a thought that may not be verbalized in your mind, so even if it's on a rational level that we don't agree, we can still feel inadequate immediately in front of our peers. And it's on an emotional level that we need this to be true. We need to figure out how to feel adequate wherever we go. And this is more difficult to do, but it's worth doing it. Chapter 13 of Feeling Good by David D. Burns is titled, "Your Work is Not Your Worth." He says, "A third silent assumption that leads to anxiety and depression is my worth as a human being is proportional to what I have achieved in my life." And Dr. Burns pulls no punches on this assumption. He never does. The entire book of Feeling Good is a relentless and thorough extermination of all concepts of negativity and everything that plagues the mind. He might have well explained his point halfway through each chapter, but he doesn't stop. He covers every angle, partly to reach different people who think differently, so that everyone can understand what he's saying, but in effect, his thoroughness also reinforces the new concepts in a way that makes each chapter pretty unforgettable. This is why I highly recommend this book. But getting back to his point in this chapter, Burns expresses that the assumption that work equals your worth is, in his words, both self-defeating and malignant. Yeah, like a cancer. This assumption will never stop plaguing you, no matter how much success you achieve in life. So Burns puts it simply, the first step in changing any personal value is to determine if it works more to your advantage or disadvantage. So I'm paraphrasing. He says, suppose you feel good about yourself because of your work ethic, because you've achieved something. You're going to feel worthless in the absence of that. And then he points out on the next page, quote, "Suppose as a result of illness, business reversal, retirement, or some other factor beyond your control, and in shorter terms, say all of those things befall you. Next, he says, now you may pay the price of a severe depression." Ooh, Dr. Burns. They call him Dr. Burns because this truth is fire. So that's exactly what we see happening in the real world. Turn 25 to 30, have a quarter-life crisis. 45, have a midlife crisis. Retire at the end of life crisis, and have a chronic or terminal illness and have a life crisis. These things will happen to all of us. These factors of life beyond our control And there's no way to out-achieve these absolutes. So why then put our self-worth purely behind accomplishment? Well, you're not wrong for thinking of it. We celebrate heroes and heroines, and we love them based on their deeds. But does that mean we love them as a person? Probably not. But it can be assumed by all of us at one point or another. Good role models are valuable in their own right for the inspiration they provide. But it's easy to get the wrong idea from them. And with how much we celebrate superheroes in our media these days, I think it's possible that the next generation may have the worst time of all of us battling feelings of inadequacy, aspiring to, but doomed never to live up to the heroes we all celebrate. That's my idea, at least. Burns continues, let's assume you've decided that it's not to your advantage to link your worth with your work. And you also admit that achievement will not reliably bring you love, respect, or happiness. All you have to do is look at the average Hollywood marriage to know that what Burns is telling is the truth. I quote, "You may still feel convinced on some level people who achieve a lot more are somehow better than others." And then Burns brings up an example of a conqueror. This person achieved greatness compared to all others by hurting people. Burns continues with dialogue of two fictional characters representing role reversal, where the superior person acts superior in the conversation. Now, I'd like to point out at this point that many celebrities have acted this way, and we hate it when they do this. But are they really at fault for something we internally believe too? I mean, they've achieved more. They're more important. We might even freak out when we meet them in person. But if they act like they are more important in front of us, that's somehow wrong? Well, of course it is. And it's wrong for you to think you're inferior to them. And Burns spends the next 8 pages demonstrating through conversation how wrong this is. It doesn't matter if they're your boss. It doesn't matter if they're someone with a higher paycheck than you. It doesn't matter if they're the mayor, a celebrity, or anyone that you look up to. That doesn't mean you're looked down on. There is no way it is advantageous to value yourself by your achievements, whether alone by virtue that life's forces won't allow you to achieve forever, or by comparison to others while you're in your prime. It is always to your disadvantage. Now, at this point, I quote, "You might ask, how can I attain self-esteem if my worth doesn't come from my success, or from love, or approval?" And for that, I really think you should read this book, because Burns replaces the justification for self-worth in the most amazing way. Essentially, he proves that there is no justification at all for human self-worth. You don't have to justify your life or your right to be happy. You just have those rights. And I simply cannot do it justice without violating his copyright, but I'll try to summarize it. He does another role reversal. "Let's assume I'm worthless," he says. And it's magnificent because immediately the dialogue breaks down why we don't believe that any human life is worthless. And Burns continues to explain over the next few pages that even people who do bad things, unforgivable things, aren't worthless, regardless of the consequences they have to face. So by all accounts, he's establishing that the attitude embodies the essence of self-love and self-respect. It does not have to be earned, and it cannot be earned in any way. Burns finishes the chapter with cognitive behavioral therapy specific techniques, which are super helpful, and I think you should buy this book to learn them. But I want to have the last words. So that puts you in the driver's seat in any scenario where you feel low self-worth or self-esteem. You are the only person who can love and respect yourself. Life gets better when you love and respect yourself. It's to your advantage to love and respect yourself. And it's easier to achieve, in fact, when you love and respect yourself. You don't have to earn your own love. You can't. Stop trying. There's no way that you can earn your self-love. The definitions don't apply. You have the power to give it. You have the power to receive it. Just do it. Here, let me plant a little bug of an idea that might help you along. You're being too hard on yourself if you don't love yourself. But nothing you can do can make you a bad person or worthless. You wouldn't view another person this way. You wouldn't want another person to view you this way. So imagine yourself as another person and encourage yourself. Bring up good memories to make yourself feel better. The choice to love yourself is yours to make. But thank goodness you have a choice in the matter. Now, also, I'd like to sort of freestyle it from here, because that was all a script I wrote yesterday. But I read this early this year, and this year is kind of a landmark year for me because not only do I have my own bipolar disorder to constantly battle, but I've also developed a rather high frequency for extreme migraines. And in battling extreme migraines, I've been interrupted in a lot of my plans, both for my future and for my future on YouTube. And so it seems these days that I'm really only able to make about 2 videos a week at most. And I'm happy with that. I'm still doing it as a hobby and I'm doing it as a service. When I talk about mental health, I'm hoping that I can help people with some of the concepts that I want to share. But because of this admittance that I am physically handicapped in a rather major way due to my health, I face a future where I may indefinitely live at home and live with my parents. And this is a bit hard to accept at first because by comparison, every one of my peers has self-sustained themselves. And so it's very difficult to let go of that desire to be independent, even though I know that in all likelihood I will be a dependent for the rest of my life in some capacity. And it took me up until about a couple weeks ago that I started making major progress towards accepting this as a life fact. And it really wasn't until 1 week ago, I was in the gym and it was late at night, and I felt like I didn't belong in that room. I felt like, well, let me paint a picture. They had just cleaned the top floor, which is the weightlifting floor of the gym, and the second floor is cardio, and the first floor is locker rooms and pool. So they had just cleaned the massive weightlifting room. Everything was shiny, everything was pristine, and I was up there late at night at about 10 p.m. and I just thought, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to ruin their hard work. And so I felt like I didn't deserve to work out, even though that was my only time that day to work out. So it took me a moment, and I realized, well, first of all, they're still open for business. They're gonna clean it again sometime before they open tomorrow. And, you know, there are steps I can take to clean up after myself. And so I convinced myself to do this, but I also found that I was immediately plotting an explanation to the staff as to why I was working out on those machines. That it's okay, guys. I will take care of cleaning up after myself. I'll wipe down all of the equipment. But that sort of behavior is entirely not necessary. I felt like I didn't belong, and I wanted to feel like I did belong, because it's to my benefit that I feel like I do belong. I pay my dues like everyone else, and they're open, and they're a service that sort of caters to me, and not the other way around. And nobody asked me to leave, and in fact, they were quite welcoming. So this presumption of inadequacy, a presumption that I have because of my status, not just at the gym, but my status at home, the status that I've been battling of, I do not have a paying job. I do not, I do not contribute to society as my peers do. This was entirely not necessary, and my assumption that somehow makes me inadequate, I knew was due to the automatic thought. And this is why this thought is so invasive. It is so malignant. It will stay with you. I had agreed rationally with this entire chapter and remembered this chapter all the way through the year, and yet I still felt inadequate based on my status as a human being. And I had to look at it again, and I had to look at myself standing there, working out at one machine in the gym, feeling like I'm about to get thrown out. And I just said to myself, you know, I need to come up with an emotional truth that is going to last a lot longer than these rational ideas that I already support. And so I thought, and this is something that I hope you can use, but I thought to myself, what if I feel like I own the place? It's my place. So any thought that comes into my mind that puts me down, I would answer back, but I own the place. I pay my dues, and for that, I have use of this entire place. And that much is true. And so I thought, okay, what if I say, feel like you own the place wherever you go, whatever room you're in, feel like you own the place, but act like everyone else. This way, I don't act like I own the place. I don't ruin things. I don't trash things. I'm not a jerk, but I feel like I do, so I don't have to constantly feel inadequate. And thus, if I imagine myself next to somebody far more wealthy, far more achieved than I don't have to feel inadequate next to them either. I can simply feel like I belong there. And that much will be true. Because if you really think about it, everywhere you go, through all your journeys, all through life, everywhere you are is where you belong. And especially if you do believe in a God, if you do believe in some higher power, and whether it's the universe or a deity specific, you believe on some level that they put you where you belong. And so, why should we ever feel out of place? Why should we ever feel inadequate after realizing all of that? And so, if you can apply this concept of feeling like you own the place wherever you go, you'll find yourself a lot more comfortable at home. You will also find yourself a lot more comfortable everywhere else. And when you do, it's just, it pays a lot of dividends, and it really has helped me a lot this week. So it's something that I really hope that lasts with me, as well as these concepts that David Burns has gone over. Your work is not your worth, and I hope you got a lot out of that. So thanks for coming, and thanks for listening. Thanks for hearing what I have to say about this subject, and I hope you find some path towards improvement of your own, and that your life gets better uh, because of these truths. So, all right, take care, have a great week, and I'll see you later.